Oof, it's done. Pre-season testing is complete, and I think it's fair to say that the smell of F1 just wafted back into our lives. You know what? It's perfect. We've had car launches and 6 days of F1 testing in Spain. But what does this pre-season testing mean for the upcoming 2020 season? Welcome to the F1 House. My name is Saki, and keep watching to find out 5 things that we learned from F1 pre-season testing this year. I really want to know what we can learn from the car launches this year and pre-season testing as we get oh so close to that first race in Australia, that first Grand. Okay, Saki, it's James. Just a quick one for legal reasons. You say welcome to the F1 House, ain't that just your landlord's shoe cupboard that you're working out of? Okay, sorry about that, let's get started. Number 1, Mercedes aren't relaxing. They are continuing to be a relentless machine here to crush the hopes of the rival forces. Okay, wrong movie, but in all seriousness, Mercedes have really raised their game. What makes me say this? Well, following on from the car and livery launches, most teams have made very few changes on first appearance. Liveries have all been fairly similar across the board. The design of the cars as a whole have stayed within the respective philosophies of each team's 2019 cars. We have seen minor tweaks for most teams. Mercedes, on the other hand, they had a strong finish to 2019. And in the off-season, they looked at every aspect of the car and took huge risks, to the extent that we've seen several innovations and riskier design concepts from them. The one that absolutely everyone is talking about is the dual axis system, also known as DAS. I think we're all really excited to see the gains that this innovation will actually bring to Mercedes. Other innovations include a new rear suspension setup in terms of the wishbone arrangement and additional weight. These kind of innovations are a clear signal of intent. Mercedes are saying, yes, we crushed the rival forces in 2019, had a strong finish to the year, but we don't care. We don't care that the rules are massively changing next year, and we're going to keep on trying to win, innovate, and take even greater risk. This leads nicely to the second thing that we learned. Number 2, expect some reliability issues. Mercedes and their customers have had reliability issues in pre-season testing. We saw the Mercedes engine of Williams lose oil pressure on a number of occasions. And on the second to last day of testing for Lewis Hamilton, he was only able to squeeze in 14 laps before having similar oil pressure problems, which caused his engine to shut down. Let's put this into perspective. Last season, I did a post on my Instagram account where I looked at the number of race retirements, putting them into a league, which included reliability issues. I think it's pretty impressive that Mercedes as a team only had 2 occasions where their drivers didn't finish a race. Valtteri Bottas didn't finish 2 races, and Lewis Hamilton finished every race in 2019. That's every single race in 2019. I'm expecting there to be more reliability issues for Mercedes in 2020. Enough for it to impact on their title defence, I'm not quite sure about that. But on balance of probabilities, Lewis Hamilton especially is due some of these issues across the year. On a whole, Mercedes have taken loads of risks on the development of the 2020 car, and you know what? When you push more with those innovations, there will always be that increased element of the unknown and increased calculated risks. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. Moving on to number 3, the third thing that we learned were the fastest times set by each team. Now this one needs to be taken with a hench bucket of the finest Himalayan salt out there. Now the reason why we say this is because testing is not the best indication of how quick a car will be at the start of a season. The only people that will truly be capable of telling how fast the car is are the people within the respective teams and after the first race in Oz. So anyone who's telling you X team is going to do really well this season, my friend, they're lying to you. Teams have been known to sandbag in the past or come up with new innovations that they've hidden using various test modes and simulations. Having said that, we can see that the Mercedes have been able to set some really quick times. The fastest time across all 6 days went to Valtteri Bottas, who set a time of 1:15.7 on the 3rd day of testing. This impressive time was then followed by a final day top time of 1:16.1. No one could match Valtteri Bottas' time, but a special mention should be given to Max Verstappen, who came within 0.073 seconds of Bottas. Next, number 4, the unknown and the sandbaggers. There's been some clear and obvious innovations from teams like Mercedes. There's been some minor tweaks from a few teams, but there's 2 teams that really stand out in terms of not knowing what their true pace is. Those two teams are Racing Point and Red Bull. Red Bull have been pumping out PR about Max Verstappen, and Max himself has been doing a lot of media talking about potentially being the champion in waiting. I agree, he probably is the F1 champion-elect along with Charles Leclerc. I did find it interesting that whilst the off-season break was taking place, there was so much information out there about Max and his credentials. It made me think Red Bull must really be preparing for a very good season. So I expect what we have seen is a fairly quick Red Bull car that has been, to an extent, sandbagging. I think they're going to be very quick in 2020, and I expect Max to be challenging for the championship. The second team that it's an unknown isn't the obvious Ferrari or McLaren. We know Ferrari will be there or thereabout and will always be fighting for wins. McLaren have returned to a great level of performance, and that was the shock of 2019. We've seen the Racing Point 2020 car being nicknamed the Pink Mercedes. They've taken advantage of the Mercedes relationship, and they're using the wind tunnel and have bought some of the parts that they're allowed to do legally. The outcome is that they produced a 2020 car that looks very similar to the Mercedes 2019 championship winning car. Now I wonder what could happen. They are very quick, they're an unknown because no one actually knows how fast they can go. I'm going to put my neck out there and say Racing Point will get some podiums this season and maybe even a victory. Number 5, Williams are back, kind of. This one might seem a bit of an anticlimax given the massive history of the Williams racing team. Getting a little bit of perspective, last year Williams didn't even make it to the first 2 days of pre-season testing, and this year during testing they ended up just 1/10 behind Ferrari's best time at one point. They were running different programs, and it's unlikely that they'll be able to get this close during races, but it's encouraging nonetheless. Now let's not get carried away. They are highly unlikely to be challenging for podiums, but they have just put in a serious amount of laps, and they'll be hoping at least to get back in touching distance with the back of the grid and the middle order. It's all about baby steps in the right direction for them and putting the systems in place that will allow them to make the most of the rule changes coming. And that just about sums up the 5 things that we learned from pre-season testing this year, and of course the car launches. Until next time everyone, thanks for watching.